We choose to go to the moon. Not because they are easy.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
But because they are hard.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome to We Choose to Go to Kennedy, the official podcast of Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex, where we talk all things past, present, and future of American spaceflight from the very place it started. I'm your host, Jenna.
And I'm Danielle, and we're so glad that you can join us today.
Yes, so today we're going to get into some pretty exciting things, a couple of new events, and we have a very special guest coming along. Before we get into that, can you tell me a little bit about how you first started getting into space?
Wow. Okay, well, my journey started when I was really little. I grew up in South Florida during the shuttle era, and so I remember going outside and watching the space shuttles launch. And, you know, from South Florida, you'd think, oh, you probably can't see too much of that. But the plumes that would come from the rocket launch, you could see it for miles and miles. So that's kind of when I first got introduced to the space program. But I didn't really get into space and the science of it all until I met my husband. His whole family, they come from a long line of NASA employees. They have over 45 years working for NASA. So when I met him, we started talking a little bit more, and you just get exposed to it. And now I get to be at the visitor complex every single day, and I learned so much. I mean, I've been here for over 3 years now, and I still am learning every single day something new about the visitor complex. So it's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky growing up in Florida. I grew up in Tampa, so not very close, but you can definitely see some launches from over there. But when I first started, I was maybe 7 years old. My parents took me to see Atlantis's second to last or last launch. So it was very cool. My mom's always been into space, so I got into that kind of aspect starting with her. And since then, I've just been writing about space, done a podcast about it, which is cool that we're kind of kickstarting it over here. And yeah, I've only been here for 2 months, but it's really cool to be able to, you know, work and learn at the place where all of it started.
Yeah, and there's so much happening. You know, I feel like you can come here almost any given day and find something new. And in particular, Gateway is one of our newest buildings, and there's always something new happening in there. I feel like that's kind of the way that we designed it and made it to be, is so that way it can change with the times of, you know, modern space flight.
For sure.
So we've got some new stuff in there that's really cool, that's been to space that you can see and learn about. So really excited to talk about that a little more in depth.
Oh, yeah. Definitely my favorite that's in there is a new one. It's STEMRAD. I'm definitely more of a science person, so that's one of my favorites we got going on there. It's a startup company that focuses on creating PPE for radioactive environments, aka deep space, which is definitely one of the bigger things we're focusing on right now. If we want to have long-term duration travels, and we're going to have people working on that stuff. So we are very lucky to have the STEMRAD Astro Vest on display. It's very cool. There's 2 twin models. Their names are Helga and Zohar, and they went up on Artemis 1 in the Orion capsule, and they were able to test out this really cool radioactive vest. So it's based on female physiology. I think that's something like that. Yeah. It's a fake little mannequin, and we got to send them up into space and kind of test how it can keep the human body safe using little sensors. So it's very cool. We have that on display now. So real flight flown equipment and technology with us. So you can learn more about kind of what we can do to protect ourselves during long duration space flights, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, and I think that exhibit is so special because I was here when Artemis 1 launched, and Zohar, we have the actual moonikin. It's not a mannequin, it's a moonikin because she flew around the moon, and you can see her there, and then next to it is the vest. So it's just really cool to see things like come full circle. Like you saw it launched, you learned about it during the launch and leading up to the launch, and now you can learn about it here, and it's super important. I mean, we're going to need that definitely so much when we do long duration moon, Mars, wherever, you know, radiation is a big thing that they study in space, even on the International Space Station. I think they had a prototype of the vest at one point go to the International Space Station, so it's cool that you can kind of see all that history right here in Gateway.
For sure. And I think that's what makes us pretty unique and special, is that we have real flight flown artifacts, and it's not something that you can see anywhere. So I think that's very unique. But I know we also have Jared Isaacman's suit, which was also flight flown.
Yes, that is probably one of my favorite things that's in Gateway, because, you know, we haven't had it for too long, so it's less than a year old. His suit from Inspiration 4, that was back in, I think, 2021, which was the first all-civilian mission to orbit. So we have his spacesuit, and you can interact with it. So you can't touch it, but you can use like this hover method to interact with it and kind of learn about the helmet, which is 3D printed, which is pretty wild how spacesuits have evolved over time, thinking that, you know, they used to be these big bulky things, and now we're just 3D printing the helmets. It's crazy.
Yes, it's very sleek compared to the other ones
for
that
sure
we have going on.
It looks something like out of a sci-fi movie. It doesn't look real space, but it is. Like, that's where we're at, you know?
Exactly.
It's not sci-fi anymore. It's real. So really cool. And yeah,
so that's really what we got new going on in that building for sure. But I'd love to kind of go back, not so much in the future, but more in the past, and learn a little bit more about the shuttle era. And I'm excited to have our next guest on.
Yeah, I think we're in luck. We might have someone who has flown on shuttle.
Yeah. So Winston Scott is our Director of Operational Excellence, as well as our resident astronaut here. He's logged almost 25 days in space, as well as completed 3 spacewalks. We're very excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Winston.
Well, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here for the first inaugural broadcast.
Yes, definitely. You're a great first guest.
Thank you.
Well, we were just talking a little bit about our first experiences with space flight and Kennedy, and we kind of wanted to know, you know, we're not astronauts, so it's probably a little bit different for you, but we wanted to know a little bit about your journey with space.
Well, my journey with space started back it was during my active duty Navy days. That's how I got to the space program. I was selected in 92, the class of 1992. And this, again, was the space shuttle era. And I flew my first mission in January of 96. It was aboard the shuttle Endeavour. We spent 9 days in orbit. Then my second flight came the end of 97, which was aboard Columbia, so 16 days on Columbia. I was a mission specialist 2, which is kind of like the flight engineer on the flight, and EVA. And as you heard, I performed 3 spacewalks over my 2 missions. And in those days, we were preparing to build the International Space Station. So I actually tested equipment, tools, and techniques, and so on that astronauts would use to actually assemble the space station.
That's amazing.
So you had a unique start to your career. You didn't originally start in engineering. Can you tell us how you got to that part?
Yes, I went to school on a music scholarship. I was going to be a professional musician. I was a very good musician in high school, and that's what I thought I would be doing for my career. But I was always, as a young kid, always interested in science and technology. But there was no guidance in those days to introduce us to engineering. When I say us, nowadays we have programs like Introduction of Minorities to Engineering, Introduction to Women in Engineering, Women in Science and Engineering, Minorities. So we didn't have those programs. So I didn't know what engineering was. But when I arrived at college, majoring in music, I discovered engineering and realized that's what I was really supposed to be doing. So I started doing a double major, actually, working on engineering and music at the same time. Well, I couldn't finish both degrees. I finished my music degree, went into the Navy, became an aviator, and flew for the Navy. The Navy sent me back to school to finish my engineering degree. So that's kind of how it worked. Not as mysterious as it sounds, but that was my series.
That's great. So you obviously have a very impressive resume, but you also are our Director of Operational Excellence. Can you kind of tell us about what it was like when you first got here to Kennedy?
Well, when I first got to Kennedy, it was actually just after my leaving active duty, because the astronauts that appear here, as you know, are all former active duty astronauts. The folks on active duty now, they're busy training. But those of us who retired from active duty will come here to Kennedy Space Center and act as the astronaut of the day. And my first visit here for, over 20 years now was as an astronaut of the day. I would come in for 4 or 5 days at a time and give presentations, sign autograph, take pictures, and so on, interact with the visiting public. Well, 3 years ago, I took over the position of the coordinator for all the astronauts. So that's the title, Director of Operational Excellence. I really act as the coordinator and the administrator for all the astronauts that come to Kennedy Space and Physics Complex to interact with the public.
That's awesome. So, of course, and I've been around here a lot. I just want to know, with Atlantis being on display, do you remember the first time you saw that and kind of how it felt?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the Atlantis display is probably the best shuttle display in the country. I haven't seen them all up close in person. I've seen photographs. But I believe our display is the best one. And no matter how many times I see it, it's always awesome when the curtain opens and unveils Atlantis. I don't want to say too much because I want the public to come here and see it for real. But during the display, of course, the public actually gets really close, just within a few feet of the actual Atlantis space shuttle that flew in orbit. And they can look around there. They can ask questions of their tour guides or docents or whoever happens to be there at the time and learn more about the shuttle. But it's really neat to actually get that close to a real space shuttle and be able to view it, to ask questions about it, to learn about it, and so on. Also in the Atlantis exhibit is more than just the shuttle, of course. There are mannequins with the spacesuits on, the suit that I wore in space, so people can talk about that. There are also mock-ups of the cockpit, so they can't walk inside the shuttle that's hanging there, but they can walk inside these cockpit mock-ups and see what the cockpit of the space shuttle looked like at the commander seat, the pilot seat, also the robot arm operator's console, and so on. They can. There's a mock-up of the Hubble Space Telescope. Not the real one. The real one's still in space. But there's a full-size mock-up of the Hubble Space Telescope, all in the Atlantis exhibit. So there's just so much stuff that goes on there. One of my favorites, I always have to point this out, is the shuttle launch experience. It's also in the big Atlantis building. And the shuttle launch experience is a really good representation of what it's like to launch into orbit, because the audience or the visitors will actually walk in, sit down, fasten their seatbelts, and then it will tilt back in the upright position, and it will shake and vibrate and simulate launching into orbit. And it really is a good representation. You feel as though you're actually being lifted into space. And then the payload bays will open, payload bay doors will open, and they can look out and see, a representation of the Earth. Yes. So you feel as though you've actually reached space. It really is a neat exhibit.
Yes, I've been on it a couple times. I definitely think it's a little bit intense, but it's nothing not manageable. I'm sure it's nothing compared to real space flight.
Absolutely.
But I kind of want to know more about your experience up in space. What was it like when you first got to see Earth from up there?
People ask that all the time, and my response is the same. There are no words I can say to make you to do it justice, because it's something that's so foreign to most people. Until you do it yourself, it's very difficult to really experience it. But it is awesome. The first time you look out and down at the Earth from space, and the first time I looked down at the Earth from space while outside of the shuttle during an EVA, is really amazing. You can when you look down, you really see how high you are and how fast you're moving. And of course, we're moving at 17,500 miles per hour, thereabout. Wow. When you look down at the Earth, you can see just how fast you're actually moving over the surface of the Earth. And of course, we circle the Earth every 90 minutes. So we've got the sun rising and setting, so to speak, 16 times every 24-hour period of time. Well, when you actually view that from space, then it really takes on a whole new dimension. And when I'm outside on a space walk with the sun going up and down and up and down, not only do you see it, but you feel it. You can feel the difference of the temperature in space. When you're in sunlight, you're very, very hot unless your suit is, you adjust the temperature on your suit. And then you go to the dark side and you can feel the chill in your suit. And again, you can adjust the temperature of your suit. What's really cool is you can see yourself passing from night to day over and over and over again. If you're in the daylight, you can look out here and see the nighttime coming. So you're in daylight, you pass through the terminator, that little line between night and day, and then a few seconds later, you're in darkness. And 45 minutes later, you can look out ahead of you and see the daytime coming again. And you pass through the terminator and back into daytime again. So it's just the total different point of view, different perspective, different things that you see up there that just no words to adequately describe it.
So how does that affect you, like sleep-wise? Does your body have a little bit of like a adjusting period with the 45-minute days?
Well, you have to sleep according to a timeline. You can't go to sleep
Can't take
when it
naps.
gets dark the way you do on Earth. You go to sleep essentially when it gets dark. You wake up when it gets light. Well, no. Up there, everything's timed for you. So when we get ready to sleep on the shuttle, I'm sure it's the same on the station, we would turn the lights down inside the vehicle and put shades on the windows. And we pretend it's nighttime. But, you can see the sun peeking through it. It's going up and down and up and down and up and down. Then, for daytime, you take the shades off the windows, turn the lights up, and pretend it's daytime. But the sun's going up and down and up and down and up and down over and over again. So, yeah, you have to sleep according to a timeline. And I think most of us on the shuttle, at least, because we were short duration vehicles, you never really adjust to sleeping up there because the sun is going up and down so much, but also because you're so excited about being there.
Yeah.
And we're there such a short period of time that we rest well and sleep pretty well, but I don't think we ever truly get adjusted. Now, folks on station who stay 6 months at a time, I'm sure they adjust very well, and it just it's no big deal to them. But
Yeah, definitely. So I know that was a little bit of a silly question, but I'm sure you get a lot of interesting questions at your chat with or your astronaut encounters. I just want to know kind of what are the kind of questions you wish that people would ask you, but they haven't yet?
oh my goodness, people ask some of everything, and some of the questions are fun questions. Let's see, probably the most asked question is, how does it feel to be in space? People, I can't tell you how it feels. I can describe it. How does it look? And people also like to ask, how does it affect your perspective of life and so on? Then everybody wants to know, but only the kids usually ask, how do you go to the bathroom in space? Everybody wants to know that one, but the kids are only the gutsy ones that will ask that. So, yeah, pretty much, I've had pretty much every question you can think of. Sometimes they'll ask technical questions. People will want to know about the vehicle itself, the fuel you use, what material it's made of, or maybe the space suit, my EMU, extravehicular mobility unit. They want to know about that a little bit, but not a lot of technical questions. Most of the questions are about how you feel and how does it look, and so on. We'll get questions about the future of space, the future of the space program, and so on. But most of them are fun questions, like, how does it feel? How does it look?
Definitely. Well, that's the time to ask. You have all that open time, and I'm sure there's a lot of fun, creative kids around asking all those questions.
And usually the questions are really good and thought-provoking questions. Every once in a while, somebody will ask, were you afraid? Were you scared? Well, no, fortunately, nothing happened that was frightening, per se. But nothing asked that question.
Yeah, definitely. So this month we do have a couple of exciting events coming up. We have our Astronaut Hall of Fame induction, May 31st. Are you going to be in attendance for that?
Absolutely. Yeah, Peggy is being inducted, and Bernard Harris. Absolutely. We all overlapped in the office. Trivia, Peggy has commanded the space station, twice, I think?
I think so.
Yeah. So for all the young girls in the audience, space is not guy stuff. We have women doing everything, and Peggy is one of them. And Bernard Harris is the first African American to walk in space. Bernard performed a spacewalk on the mission just before mine. But anyway, the answer is yes. I will be at the event. It's always a fun event.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I believe it's the 109 astronauts already inducted. So it's very cool to have this year's inductees coming by.
Yeah, and Peggy is, set to launch no earlier than May 29th, so we'll see how that plays out. Very exciting time. I think this will be the first time for the potential of an astronaut getting inducted to even, potentially be in space.
Right.
So very cool. And so cool that Bernard performed the first spacewalk just before you. So crazy. All tied together, huh?
All tied together. I'm told they're trying to work it so that if Peggy is in orbit, they can tie her in and do a link up with her during the event. I don't know how well that will work out. As you know, there's a lot of things have to fall in place.
A lot of factors
to make that happen.
Yeah.
But she's well deserving. Peggy is just a great astronaut, great person, just done all kinds of really amazing things. So.
But we all know how spaceflight works. Just because it says no earlier than May 29th
right.
doesn't mean it's going on May 29th.
And even if she doesn't go, she's probably in quarantine. She would not be able to attend the ceremony, but it'd be easy to Zoom her in if she's still on Earth than to link her in from orbit.
True. There's a lot of technicalities. Yeah.
That's always a fun event. That we had. We always have celebrities attend. They always get a celebrity to be like the host or something like that. One year we had George Takei. And John Travolta was there one year. George Takei, Mr. Sulu from the original Star Trek. John Travolta was a guest one year. And I'm trying to think who else. LeVar Burton, who was Geordi LaForge on Star Trek The Next Generation. And we've had, so you get TV and movie personalities typically attending this event.
And not just that, but lots of other astronauts, right? It's not just you and the inductees. Astronauts come out to support their fellow colleagues, so there will probably be a good amount of those, I would expect.
It's one of the events that we look forward to because we're trying to get everybody together. So 2 or 3 times a year there's an event where we try to get the astronauts together. This is one of them.
Awesome. And we get to host it right here at the Visitor Complex and underneath Space Shuttle Atlantis, which is an amazing venue. So.
It is. Interesting things happen. When a few years ago, well, let's back up. I have to set the stage for this. We were good friends with Nichelle Nichols. Nichelle, of course, was Lieutenant Uhura on the original Star Trek, and also the original recruiter who recruited Sally Ride, the first American woman in space, Guy Bluford, and Ron McNabb, the first African American. Anyway, she was working with NASA. Well, a movie was released called Woman in Motion, which highlighted Nichelle Nichols several years ago. Well, my wife and I have attended several events with Nichelle Nichols when she was with us. And my wife actually resembles Nichelle Nichols. People would approach us and say, Miss Nichols, is this your daughter or is that your mom? So we'd have to have that happen. So at one year during the astronaut Hall of Fame induction ceremony, when we walked in, a lot of people rushed over to my wife, thinking she was Nichelle Nichols.
Wow.
Now, they forgot the time difference. Nichelle looked like that 40 years ago when Star Trek was on TV, and my wife, so funny things happen, but they actually thought she was Nichelle Nichols.
We'll have to keep her safe this time around. Try not to get bombarded.
They didn't pay me any attention at all. They always talk to her. So.
Well, we're going to be very excited to see you there. And we're also very grateful that you came on for our first episode. We really appreciate it. And it was such a blast getting to hear kind of about how you first started and the awesome stuff you do over here.
Well, I appreciate it. It's my pleasure. Glad to do it. And somewhere down the road, if you want me to come back again.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you very much.
That's all for We Choose to Go to Kennedy. I'm your host, Jenna.
And I'm Danielle.
If you want to meet an astronaut just like Winston, you can go to our website at kennedysspacecenter.com to see who we have visiting us at the time.
If you have any questions, you can message us on social at Explore Space KSC on X and Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex on Instagram and Facebook.
Thank you guys so much for joining us.
We'll see you next time.
We choose to go to the moon. Not because they are easy,
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
but because they are hard.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.